Hey, fourth and fifth grade. We will continue on with reading Matilda. In the last video, we were in the middle of a chapter. Matilda and her little friend Lavender were out on the playground and they met the older student Hortensia, who was telling them all sorts of stories about being in trouble with the Trunchbull. And so when we left off, the Trunchbull had stomped out onto the playground and she was yelling for a student named Amanda Thrip. And Matilda and Lavender were like, well, what's going on? And Hortensia was saying that Amanda had worn her hair in pigtails, which the Trunchbull hates. So here's the picture. I think I may have shown this last time. So we'll just pick up from here. We'll start at this. Hold your hats, Hortensia whispered. What's going to happen? Lavender whispered back. Well, that idiot Amanda, Hortensia said, has let her long hair grow even longer during the holidays, and her mother has braided it into 2 pigtails. Silly thing to do. Well, why silly? Matilda asked. If there's one thing the Trunchbull can't stand, it's pigtails, Hortensia said. Matilda and Lavender saw the giant in green breeches advancing upon a girl of about 10, who had a pair of braided golden pigtails hanging over her shoulders. Each pigtail had a blue satin bow at the end of it, and it all looked very pretty. The girl wearing the pigtails, Amanda Thrip, stood quite still watching the advancing giant, and the expression on her face was one that you might find on the face of a person who is trapped in a small field with an enraged bull who is charging flat out towards her. The girl was glued to the spot, terror-struck, pop-eyed, quivering, knowing for certain that the day of judgment had come for her at last. Miss Trunchbull had now reached the victim and stood towering over her. I want those filthy pigtails off before you come back to school tomorrow, she barked. Chop 'em off and throw 'em in the dustbin. You understand? Now Amanda, paralyzed with fright, managed to stutter, My mommy likes them. She braids them for me every morning. Well, your mummy's a twit, the Trunchbull bellowed. She pointed a finger the size of a salami at the child's head and shouted, You look like a rat with a tail coming out of its head. My mommy thinks I look lovely, Miss Trunchbull, Amanda stuttered, shaking like a leaf. I don't give a tinker's toot what your mommy thinks, the Trunchbull yelled. And with that, she lunged forward and grabbed hold of Amanda's pigtails in her right fist and lifted the girl clear off the ground. Then she started swinging her around and around her head, faster and faster, and Amanda was screaming bloody murder, and the Trunchbull was yelling, I'll give you pigtails, you little rat! Here's a lovely picture of this happening. Shades of the Olympics, Hortensia murmured. She's getting up speed now, just like she does with the hammer. 10-1, she's going to throw her. And now the Trunchbull was leaning back against the weight of the whirling girl and pivoting expertly on her toes, spinning round and round, and soon Amanda Thrip was traveling so fast she became a blur. And suddenly, with a mighty grunt, the Trunchbull let go of the pigtails, and Amanda went sailing like a rocket right over the wire fence of the playground and high up into the sky. Well thrown, sir, someone shouted from across the playground, and Matilda, who was mesmerized by the whole crazy affair, saw Amanda Thrip descending in a long, graceful parabola onto the playing field beyond. She landed on the grass and bounced 3 times and finally came to a rest. Then, amazingly, she sat up. She looked a trifle dazed, and who could blame her? But after a minute or so, she was on her feet again and tottering back towards the playground. The Trunchbull stood in the playground, dusting off her hands. Not bad, she said, considering I'm not in strict training. Yep, not bad at all. And then she strode away. She's mad, Hortensia said. But don't the parents complain? Matilda asked. Would yours? Hortensia asked. I know mine wouldn't. She treats the mothers and fathers just the same as the children, and they're all scared to death of her. I'll be seeing you sometime, you two. And with that, she sauntered away. There's a picture of Amanda. All right, next chapter is called Bruce Bogtrotter and the Cake. How can she get away with it? Lavender said to Matilda. Surely the children go home and tell their mothers and fathers. I know my father would raise a terrific stink if I told him the headmistress had grabbed me by the hair and slung me over the playground fence. No, he wouldn't, Matilda said, and I'll tell you why. He simply wouldn't believe you. Well, of course he would. He wouldn't, Matilda said, and the reason is obvious. Your story would sound too ridiculous to be believed, and that is the Trunchbull's great secret. What is? Lavender asked. Matilda said, never do anything by halves if you want to get away with it. Be outrageous. Go the whole hog. Make sure everything you do is so completely crazy, it's unbelievable. No parent is going to believe this pigtail story. Not in a million years. Mine wouldn't. They would just call me a liar. Well, in that case, Lavender said, Amanda's mother isn't going to cut off her pigtails. No, she isn't, Matilda said. Amanda will do it herself. You see if she doesn't. Do you think she's mad? Lavender asked. Who? The Trunchbull. No, I don't think she's mad, Matilda said, but she's very dangerous. Being in this school is like being in charge... Being in this school is like being in a cage with a cobra. You have to be very fast on your feet. So real quick, when they keep saying that or asking if the Trunchbull is mad, they're not saying like mad angry. They're saying mad like she's crazy. They got another example of how dangerous the headmistress could be on the very next day. During lunch, an announcement was made that the whole school should go into the assembly hall and be seated as soon as the meal was over. When all the 250 or so boys and girls were settled down in assembly, the Trunchbull marched onto the platform. None of the other teachers came in with her. She was carrying a riding crop in one hand. That's like a whip. She stood up there on center stage in her green breeches with legs apart and the riding crop in hand, glaring at the sea of upturned faces before her. What's going to happen? Lavender whispered. I don't know, Matilda whispered back. The whole school waited for what was coming next. Bruce Bogtrotter! The Trunchbull barked suddenly. Where is Bruce Bogtrotter? A hand shot up among the seated children. Come up here, the Trunchbull shouted, and look very smart about it. An 11-year-old boy, who was decidedly large and round, stood up and waddled briskly forward. He climbed up onto the platform. Here's a picture of the Trunchbull, by the way. Stand over there, the Trunchbull ordered, pointing. The boy stood to one side. He looked nervous. He knew very well he wasn't up there to be presented with a prize. He was watching the headmistress with an exceedingly wary eye, and he kept edging farther and farther away from her with little shuffles of his feet, rather as a rat might edge away from a terrier that is watching it from across the room. His plump, flabby face had turned gray with fearful apprehension. His stockings hung about his ankles. This clot, boomed the headmistress, pointing the riding crop at him like a pointer. This blackhead, this foul carbuncle, this poisonous pustule that you see before you is none other than a disgusting criminal, a denizen of the underworld, a member of the mafia. Who, me? Bruce Bogtrotter said, looking genuinely puzzled. A thief, the Trunchbull screamed. A crook, a pirate, a rustler, a brigand. Steady on, the boy said. I mean, dash it all, headmistress. Do you deny it, you miserable little gumboil? Do you plead not guilty? I don't know what you're talking about, the boy said, more puzzled than ever. I'll tell you what I'm talking about, you suppurating little blister, the Trunchbull shouted. Yesterday morning, during break, you sneaked like a serpent into the kitchen and stole a slice of my private chocolate cake from my tea tray. That tray had just been prepared for me personally by the cook. It was my morning snack. And as for the cake, it was my own private stock. That was not little boy's cake. You don't think for 1 minute I'm going to eat the filth that I give to you? That cake was made from real butter and real cream. And he, that robber bandit, that safecracker, that highwayman standing over there with his socks around his ankles, stole it and ate it. I never did, the boy exclaimed, turning from gray to white. Don't lie to me, Bog Trotter, barked the Trunchbull. The cook saw you. What's more, she saw you eating it. The Trunchbull paused to wipe a fleck of froth from her lips. When she spoke again, her voice was suddenly softer and quieter, more friendly, and she leaned towards the boy, smiling. You like my special chocolate cake, don't you, Bog Trotter? It's rich and delicious, isn't it, Bog Trotter? It's very good, the boy mumbled. The words were out before he could stop himself. You're right, the Trunchbull said. It is very good. Therefore, I think you should congratulate the cook. When a gentleman has had a particularly good meal, Bog Trotter, he always sends his compliments to the chef. You didn't know that, did you, Bog Trotter? But those who inhabit the criminal underworld are not noted for their good manners. The boy remained silent. Sure. Cook! The Trunchbull shouted, turning her head towards the door. Come here, cook. Bog Trotter wishes to tell you how good your chocolate cake is. Now the cook, a tall, shriveled female who looked as though all of her body juices had been dried out of her long ago in a hot oven, walked onto the platform wearing a dirty, white apron. Her entrance had clearly been arranged beforehand by the headmistress. Now then, Bog Trotter, the Trunchbull boomed, tell cook what you think of her chocolate cake. It's very good, the boy mumbled. You could see he was now beginning to wonder what all of this was leading up to. The only thing he knew for certain was that the law forbade the Trunchbull to hit him with the riding crop that she kept smacking against her thigh. That was some comfort, but not much, because the Trunchbull was totally unpredictable. One never knew what she was going to do next. There you are, cook, the Trunchbull cried. Bog Trotter likes your cake. He adores your cake. Do you have any more of your cake that you could give him? I do indeed, the cook said. She seemed to have learned her lines by heart. Well, then go and get it and bring a knife to cut it with. The cook disappeared. Almost at once, she was back again, staggering under the weight of an enormous round chocolate cake on a china platter. The cake was fully 18 inches in diameter, and it was covered with dark brown chocolate icing. Put it on the table, the Trunchbull said. So 18 inches in diameter. So if you think of a round cake, the diameter would be how far it is from one end of the cake to the other. So this cake is 18 inches, which would be one ruler plus a half a ruler. So it's kind of hard to show you, but like this big around. There was a small table center stage with a chair behind it. The cook placed the cake carefully on the table. Sit down, Bog Trotter, the Trunchbull said. Sit there. The boy moved cautiously to the table and sat down. He stared at the gigantic cake. And here's the cook bringing it out. Well, there you are, Bog Trotter, the Trunchbull said. And once again, her voice then became soft, persuasive, even gentle. It's all for you, every bit of it. As you enjoyed that slice you had yesterday so very much, I ordered the cook to bake you an extra large one all for yourself. Well, thank you, the boy said, totally bemused. Oh, thank cook, not me, the Trunchbull said. Thank you, cook, the boy said. The cook stood there like a shriveled bootlace, tight-lipped, tight-lipped, disapproving. She looked as though her mouth was full of lemon juice. Come on then, the Trunchbull said. Why don't you cut yourself a nice thick slice and try it? What? Now? The boy said, cautious. He knew there was a catch in this somewhere, but he wasn't sure where. Well, can't I take it home instead? He asked. Well, that would be impolite, the Trunchbull said with a crafty grin. You must show Cookie here how grateful you are for all the trouble she's taken. The boy didn't move. Go on, get on with it, the Trunchbull said. Cut a slice and taste it. We haven't got all day. So we're going to pause there, and we'll save the rest for next time.